Now available for pre-order on Kindle. Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Pre-order your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Kindle today. Yesterday, New York Attorney General Letitia James released her report as related to allegations of sexual harassment against New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo. And after a 4-month-long investigation of these alleged claims of sexual harassment by 11 women, Letitia James was able to substantiate and confirm that many of these alleged incidents of sexual harassment actually happened. Now, in the aftermath of these sexual harassment allegations being substantiated, your New York Governor Andrew Cuomo took to the media to make a statement. And in that statement, he refused to resign as governor of New York, and he continued to make excuses as related to these substantiated allegations. Now, members of Andrew Cuomo's political party are insisting that he resign, and this group of politicians goes all the way from members of the state legislature and the heads of the state legislature all the way up to members of Congress like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and many other congressional representatives through New York. Even the President of the United States, Joe Biden, has insisted that Andrew Cuomo should resign, and in the face of all of these calls for Andrew Cuomo to resign, unfortunately, he still insists on remaining in office. Now, when I take a critical examination of these allegations made against Andrew Cuomo being substantiated, if Andrew Cuomo were to remain in office, this could be a major liability for his political party. Now, Andrew Cuomo's political party is actually in a very dire situation at this point, because all across the country, many of the cities that his party are in charge of are in a really bad state. For example, your governor, Gavin Newsom, has practically run California straight into the ground and is practically on the list for being recalled as governor. And in Chicago, your Lori Lightfoot has practically been so overwhelmed by violence in Chicago that she's been shown not to be competent enough to even run that city. And the same thing can be said for the mayor of Minneapolis, who was practically led to his city practically falling apart after a campaign to defund the police in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd. And your Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, has practically gone on a one-man crazy spree where he insists that people need to present cards in order to go into venues like gyms, restaurants, and bars. And in addition to this, you have Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti talking about homelessness is a crime. So all of these politicians are in a serious bad shape, and they don't really help the party look good in the quest for the midterm elections of 2022. So all of these politicians, they really are not in a good place, and they're not making the party look like they're in a good place. But what is extremely troubling about this whole case of Andrew Cuomo is the hypocrisy of this politician. Now, your Andrew Cuomo came out and said that he was against sexual harassment, and here he is participating in 11 confirmed cases of sexual harassment. Now, what's even more troubling about Andrew Cuomo is that he oftentimes spoke out against Donald Trump and talked all bad about Donald Trump, but ironically, he was participating in the exact same behavior that he alleged Donald Trump to be participating in. And again, this is a major liability for Cuomo's political party walking into the midterms next year, because this could possibly be the thing that leads to a major right revolution like we saw back in 1994. Now, back in 1994, many of these left-leaning politicians wound up getting ousted as related to a major revolution. And that revolution came as a result of numerous scandals all across the country as related to left leaning candidates not going out here and participating in corruption and going out here and violating the trust of the American people. And the seeds of this were sowed way back in 2020 when the left took power, but a lot of them were not really looking at the chessboard because many were caught up in their emotions about Donald Trump, and because they were not thinking critically about trying to maintain the very rickety structure of a majority in the House and the Senate, many of those scandals wound up overtaking them in 1994. And the same thing is possibly could happen in 2022. And sadly, your Joe Biden really has not really brought the party together to maintain a unified base, to maintain the slim majority that they have, and try to build on that majority, which definitely will be cut down in the face of all of these scandals that have gone on with many of these left-leaning politicians. But your Andrew Cuomo is extremely egregious because he was the one out here trying to present himself as some sort of hero throughout the pandemic. And as we see that as what he was doing during the pandemic was not really heroic behavior, because he signed an order that led to the deaths of many elderly people when he insisted that COVID-19 patients be admitted into nursing homes. And he went out here and blew off Donald Trump's offer of the USNS Comfort, and that led to many people winding up losing their lives, all because he was in his feelings about Donald Trump. And again, the great irony is, in his efforts to try to present himself as anti-Trump, we now see that he participates in many of the same behaviors that people allege your Donald Trump participated in. And what is going to happen here, again, if Mr. Cuomo does not resign from his position as governor, is he may possibly wind up sinking his party, because he will be a major liability, along with your Gavin Newsom, along with your Lori Lightfoot, along with your Bill de Blasio, and along with the mayor of Minneapolis, because your people on the right can then take these people as examples of governance gone wrong and then create a campaign to say that they can do something different. And when it comes down to many of these right-leaning politicians, they can turn a guy like Andrew Cuomo into a poster boy for the failures of the left. And they probably are getting ready to do that, since he insists on remaining in office. And the campaign of the right would possibly be saying that people like Andrew Cuomo participated in serious government overreach, and that this whole party of the left definitely needs to be checked and balanced before they go out here and take too much power away from we the people. That would be the core argument of any right-leaning candidate at this point. Due to Andrew Cuomo's defiance, they could go out here and wage a campaign to say that your Andrew Cuomo and those on the left have used the pandemic to take away Americans' rights, and they have gone out here and abused the American people's constitutional rights, and that's why they need to be checked by the balances of America's legal system through a 2022 vote. And this could be a referendum on these overreaches by many of these left-leaning politicians, and they would use Andrew Cuomo as the face of somebody who has violated the American people's trust and broken the boundaries of the American people's public trust. That could be the core foundation for a 2022 campaign to take the House and the Senate and take numerous state houses in places like Michigan, where Gretchen Whitmer is practically alienated the people, and places like New Jersey and places like Pennsylvania, we could lose the left could lose lots of state houses and lots of House and Senate seats, just like the revolution of 1994. Unfortunately, many are so caught up in their emotions, they're not really thinking critically about the chessboard, and they're not thinking about the upcoming checkmate coming from all of these scandals, just like it happened back in 1994. Now, also, what makes your Andrew Cuomo quite troubling is that he's sitting there being defiant about not resigning, but many people in America had no problem going out here and putting Bill Cosby in prison for 3 years for a crime that never happened. I mean, I find it quite troubling that most Americans had no problem with Bill Cosby going to prison for a crime that never happened, but Andrew Cuomo, who has been proven to be participating in this egregious behavior, is still in office, and people like Joe Biden and many people in government are just shrugging their shoulders and saying there's not much they can do outside of impeachment. And again, this makes Andrew Cuomo's party look very bad because they were the party that said they were above these kind of things. But here you have an individual who participates in some of the most egregious behavior, and he's sitting there still in office, defiant, refusing to give up power, and mirroring the very same Donald Trump who back in 2020 was refusing to acknowledge the loss of the election. Again, quite troubling parallels between your Mr. Cuomo and Mr. Trump that will be easily capitalized by independent candidates, right-leaning candidates, and other type of candidates who will go out here in 2022. And again, the left has a very slim majority, and that majority in the House and the Senate is sure to be broken at this point because there's a desperate need for a check at this point, and I believe American voters are going to check this majority because they see that there is some serious corruption going on here, and this has to be checked almost immediately, just like Americans did in 1994. Now, this whole incident, again, is extremely troubling because this man, again, came out as a proponent to support women. He came out here talking about how he was against sexual harassment, and he talked about how people who participated in sexual harassment need to be punished to the fullest extent of the law. But once that same sort of judgment is made against him, he wants to avoid taking accountability. He wants to avoid taking responsibility, and he wants to not step down and do the right thing. That is what's really troubling about your Andrew Cuomo, his lack of character. I mean, in this situation, he showed that he never stood for what he believed in, and he is showing a deep hypocrisy that could erode any of the support that the left had in the last year, which is, as I see it, practically imploding as we speak. And the longer he stays in office, the more damage he does to his party. And the same thing with his brother working at CNN. That organization's whole news organization has no more credibility at this point because your Chris Cuomo participated with Andrew Cuomo in trying to cover things up, and again, allegedly cover things up. And that could do damage to the CNN brand, which is already at the lowest ratings of all. And at this point, it just stands that if Cuomo doesn't resign, he may wind up costing his party the 2022 midterms, and he may possibly wind up costing them the 2024 election. Now, this video is not going to be monetized because YouTube just does not like people who criticize left-leaning politicians. So if you could donate to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App, it would be greatly appreciated. And if you could pick up some of my books on Amazon.com, that would also be appreciated as well. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere.